Hey y'all, welcome back to Reddit the Wire. Well, it's been a while since we've seen each other, so I thought I'd pop in and say hello. Today we're going to be taking a look at the late pick 5 on Saturday's card at Churchill Downs that does include a couple of Grade 3 stakes races, the Chilukki as well as the Commonwealth Turf Stakes. So let's have at it. Here we go with the Churchill Downs late pick 5. It comprises races 7 through 11 on the Saturday card. And a good prelude for Thanksgiving. I think this is going to be a pretty tough sequence. It's really hard to find a single, and there's most of these races are, that they're chalk laden, but it's hard to find really big value to supplant any of them. But nobody has a real defined edge, so you're going to find. I think you need to spread in just about every one of these races. We'll start with leg 1, which is the 7th race. It's a maiden for 120,000, run at 6.5 furlongs for 2-year-olds. And you take a look at this one, and there's a couple that really pop off the page. I didn't really like any of the speed in here. Tartarian and Troubleshooting look like they would be backing up pretty quick, and I don't know if they fit necessarily class-wise. Maybe Troubleshooting to a degree, but I think there's some firepower in here that's probably going to override them. Early Speed has been playing much better at Churchill in sprints lately, but I just think that there's a little too much talent here for Troubleshooting. I think is a little lacking, so we're going to look elsewhere, maybe underneath possibly. The number 2, Yinzer, is pretty logical. It's $1 million purchase for Steve Asherson by Twirling Candy. Twirling Candy is 18% with first-time starters. The tab shows some pretty good talent. Always love to see firsters with a lot of works. It tells me that they're serious about them. And got a little bit of intel hearing that Yinzer's one that Asmussen really likes. So that's enough for me. Certainly one to consider. At 8-1, you get a pretty nice price. Sea Vista is a pretty logical win candidate. Brad Cox is at 33% with a large sample size with second-time starters at a route. Had a really game second behind Uncaged and at Saratoga. And Uncaged is a horse that I really like for the Derby Trail should he come back. I haven't seen him in a while. The layoff might be an issue. Hasn't run since August, but it's Brad Cox, and that's not going to really bother me. So to me, Sea Vista, pretty logical in this spot. Mo Quality is another one that had a nice second, first time out a couple of weeks ago. And Chris Davis having a nice meet, good solid trainer. A little concerned about Tyler Gaffleone in the irons as he had a spill a couple days back and he had to be carted off. He did run, he did come back to ride, or is coming back to ride pretty quick, but he did note how sore he was off of it. So we'll just have to see if he's 100% back. If he is, certainly Mo Quality would be one to pay attention to. He did follow up his effort with a work. He was second out of 106, and that's always a really good sign. A horse ready to take another move forward, who is certainly going to have to break better, but I think that's logical, especially with Chris Davis training. So Mo Quality, one to consider. A couple others to think about. Tomasello from Mark Casse is by Authentic, and he doesn't do terribly well with first-time starters, but I really like the tab, and this looks like a horse who's getting it. And at 12-1 might be a sleeper to consider. Restless Renegade, I'm throwing in there because it's Kenny McPeak, Brian Hernandez Jr., and this one comes from off the pace. And when you have a race like that, that's I don't think is overly defined. Kenny McPeak tends to be pretty dangerous. So I would throw in Restless Renegade, if nothing else, for underneath. And if you are looking for a sleeper to upset the apple cart, maybe if they get a little hot early on, this might be one who could pick up the pieces, particularly if Sea Vista comes in a little rusty off the long layoff and the others aren't quite up to what they were in the debut or their first-time effort. So Sea Vista is my pick to win it, and I think Yinzer and Mo Quality would be the other two logicals in this one. Leg 2 is the 8th race. It's the Chilukki Stakes, a Grade 3 run at a mile for 3-year-olds and up, fillies and mares. And this is a one-turn mile, as we know, at Churchill Downs, and that certainly is important. Too Sharp really jumps off the page here. He's the lone speed, and of course the only question is, can he get the distance? Has not run at a mile yet, but he's by Twirling Candy, and I don't think the mile is going to be a problem at all, especially around one turn. And what you have is you've got a horse with greasy fast early speed, and he's pretty much going to be all alone on the lead. And again, as we noted, our early speed has been doing much better at Churchill lately. So to me, Too Sharp is a very logical pick in here to get the distance. And moreover, the thing is, particularly when you have a horse like this where maybe distance is a question, I can't see anybody giving, you look at this field and I don't see anybody putting a lot of pressure on Too Sharp early. And if anything, I would think these guys would be just sort of waiting for this horse to wilt at the distance. But it's very conceivable that Too Sharp could get off to a pretty soft lead. And if that's the case, I think it's all over. I think this horse has a speed edge over most of the horses in this field, and I really like it. I just think it's a really good scenario for a horse who's definitely on the upswing. Looking at some others, Pigali is very logical. 6 out of 7 at the distance, and at Churchill Downs has a positive record, 4 out of 5 in the money. This is a horse who I think is definitely getting good at the right time. What I wonder about is whether or not he can catch Too Sharp if she cuts loose. That's really the only question I have. I think Pigali is very logical in this spot, and you're certainly going to get a nice price. Definitely one to consider. Taxed is a horse I've really never been a big fan of at all, to be quite honest. This horse just seems to need a whole lot of things to go right for Taxed to have a good race. And that's not the kind of horse I get interested in, particularly at 4-1. We'll likely be laying back, and we'll try to pick up the pieces late and maybe can get one run here. But again, I think the scenario isn't very favorable. But class-wise, I think Taxed, is one certainly to consider, but I would think more for underneath. Royal Spa is one that, in her last race, Shibuti got the win, but I thought Royal Spa did all the heavy lifting up on the front end and still hung on for second. I think this is a horse who's another one firing fresh now and coming into this race, getting good at the right time. And at 8-1, I think you're getting some really nice value. If you're looking for a horse who potentially can spring the upset at value, I think Royal Spa makes a lot of sense. Positano Sunset, probably has a really good scenario for her. One turn, and will be coming off the pace. I'm just worried that there isn't going to be enough to run to necessarily. And that's really my biggest concern. This is a nice horse, and at 10-1, you're certainly getting a nice price. But I think underneath seems to me would be more likely in this particular race shape. So to me, Too Sharp is my pick to win it, followed closely by Pigali and Royal Spa. Leg 3 is the 9th race. It's an allowance N1X, non-winners at 2 lifetime at $127,000. Run at 6 furlongs for 3-year-olds and up. And I tell you, of all the races, this is probably the funkiest, I'd say. You got a couple of horses coming off of long layoffs, Colorado Cruiser and Wind Rider. And then you've got, just from a race shape perspective, you've got a fair amount of early speed in this one. Probably of the early speed, I like Attaché has a couple of things going for him. Number one, he's third off the layoff, and he's up to the inside. And again, inside speed's been doing pretty well at Churchill. I'm not sure he's got the top end to hold off Band for Life. Band for Life can run on the front end, but can also rate. And I think just looms logical from a speed figure perspective here. Just a note on Risk It for Steve Asmussen. I was pretty high on this horse at 2 years old, but the thing is, this horse never seemed to settle down. Just always seemed to run rank all the time. And, you got to figure off a real long layoff. This one's going to be pretty frisky to get going. So that's the reason I'm overlooking Risk It. Colorado Cruiser is very intriguing to me. Now, Doug O'Neill isn't the greatest with first time with the team, but note this one's had a really long layoff and has some good back class running in California, admittedly, but running against Coach Prime and Nisos. I mean, this horse has held his own pretty well, and really like the tab. You got 3 bullets, and this one just looks like that he's ready to fire. And at 10-1, I think this race kind of invites looking at value more than anything, just because of all the early speed. And Colorado Cruiser is going to be right off of Attaché's throat latch and may have a really good tactical position. And I like Colorado Cruiser in this spot. Windrider showed a little something, but hasn't raced in over a year. And I'm just kind of throwing him in there because some of some of the others aren't quite as enticing. So let's throw Windrider in there for the value at 15-1, and if it comes off the bench flying, then who knows? It's just one of those kind of races looking for some plausible value to throw into the mix. If Agu was to the inside a little more, I would really like Agu in this spot. He can rate, but the 11 hole is problematic without a doubt. But I think certainly can win this race. We'll need a break or two, but I just think Agu talent-wise stacks up really well in this group. But I think Band to Life being a little closer to the inside with a little bit of a speed edge, I think is the logical choice here. But Agu and Colorado Cruiser, to me, represent a couple of interesting alternatives. Leg 4 is the 10th race. It's the Commonwealth Turf Stks, a Grade 3 running a mile and a 16th on the turf for 3-year-olds. So this is one of the last 3-year-olds only races of the year. And you take a look at this one, and really the interesting thing to me is, what is my boy Prince going to do? Now, this horse, for some reason, looked awful good as a 2-year-old. But the King's Plate and the last race, this horse is just, just takes off. And it's kind of inexplicable, and it seems to me there's either a bit of overconfidence on the jockey's part, or this horse is just really headstrong and they don't want to sap the energy by trying to rein in. But this one always seems to just take off at the top of the turn and tries to just hang on, and it just really hasn't worked out terribly well. I don't think Piper's Factor is going to give a whole lot of bother, but Hershey, I think, definitely represents a horse who, rating off the pace, in the race prior, did a lot of heavy lifting, and with a really hot pace, it still was able to marshal a third. I thought that was a really impressive effort, and to me, Hershey is one that you, or Hershey, however it is the one that, to me, initially my thought was my boy Prince at 6-1. Wow, that's pretty intriguing. But you go back and watch those couple of races. If he does that again, he's just not going to be there. So, to me, Hershey of the early runners makes a lot of sense. Dashman is the favorite, and I think there's a reason he's 5-2 instead of 2-1. I really did not think his last race was really that great. He had every chance to win it and didn't. Now, granted, he was running against a really good field, and Carson's run certainly would be 2-5 in this race. But I just thought this horse could have done a little more. Really, was what it came down to, that's really, I'm kind of thinking this horse is more underneath material in this field. Evade has a speed edge over the field, and That's what I'm going with. I think this horse will stretch out from Mike Maker. That's what he does on turf. We all know that. And at 7-2, I think you're getting a really nice price for a horse who's already demonstrated some nice back class over in Europe. I just think this horse makes a lot of sense here. And, probably going to have some pace to run to. Again, if My Boy Prince does what he's been doing, I don't think there's any doubt of that. XR Bend Derby, which, if you didn't know, is Nebraska spelled backwards. It's the old XR Bend was a track many years ago out in Nebraska, and it was a rotating. They used to move it around. But anyway, it's kind of a cool name. This horse is a nice late runner. Just don't know about the top end to get it done, but I think this one's really logical to include underneath. Laganos, what can you say? This horse has just been disappointing from the get-go. Really, turf, dirt, it doesn't matter. They've moved this horse to turf now. The last race was encouraging, was willing in the stretch, but was nowhere near anybody. And, I just think this is a horse that, I just think he's outclassed. I mean, I think they're really probably starting to realize this horse just isn't that good, and it's probably going to be in the claiming ranks before much longer. But did have a nice effort last time, 4-1. I don't want any part of him, but underneath, I think is certainly possible. So, to me, I think Dashman's just a little overrated from what I've seen. You can talk about back class and everything else, but I just want to see a little more than I have. So to me, Evade is the one to beat. But Hershey, I think, is intriguing. The only thing I'm worried about is getting burned up if the pace gets a little too hot. But this one is game, and if for some reason they can slow it down a little bit, really has a very good chance in this one. But Evade's the one to beat for me. Leg 5 is the 11th race. It's a maiden special weight for 120,000, run at 1.16 for 2-year-old fillies. So for a lot of these, this will be the first foray around 2 turns, and that's always important to take a look at. This, to me, is a very interesting field. Calamity for Brad Cox is pretty logical as a first-time starter. It's Brad Cox. You just can't leave off. I mean, I think is certainly one you want to keep in the mix. Now, the Girl Math is the favorite in here, but this is a horse to me that has a lot of, obviously as a maiden hasn't won yet, but has had every chance in her last 2 races to win and hasn't done it. And when you see that starting to happen, then you're thinking, is this a Hurricane Nelson? That horse earlier in the year was running second to everybody. I was not impressed by that last race with California Sunset at 14-1, blew right by her to win. And, this one fits speed figure wise and is certainly logical enough. But I think there's others that offer better value and have a just as good or better a chance. And I like Golden Gamble. I thought she ran in the same race, was had a little more trouble and kept on and was getting to the winner in the stretch. And going around 2 turns, Kenny McPeak, Brian Hernandez, I think this one makes a lot of sense here. And I'm going to pick at 7-2. I think you're getting some nice value. Now, I don't know how much early speed there is in this race. So for that reason, and that reason only really, I'm going to throw in Madeline's Promise at 12-1. Probably more likely for under, but let's keep in mind who the trainer is. It's Dale Romans. He's good with second-time starters. He's good moving to a route. And he loves speed. And I've talked with him at Saratoga, and I've seen, heard him speak about it many times, is that he loves speed. He loves to get on the lead and go as far as he can. I would not be surprised if in a race like this, that's exactly what they try to do with Madeline's Promise. Now, the sire, Promises Fulfilled, was all that he knew how to do, is get on the lead and bolt. So maybe a little bit of that for the daughter here, and may catch the field napping, especially when you consider girl math has a little bit of a problem finishing. Then you get a horse like Madeline's Promise with when you consider Calamity as a first-time starter and you see Golden Gamble as a late runner, as most Kenny McPeaks are, then maybe this sets up for a horse like Madeline's Promise. Thinking more underneath, but if you're looking for one to upset the apple cart, might be a sleeper in there at 12 to 1. So we take a look at our ticket, and listen, I could not find a single in here that I really, really like. However, if you were going to look for one, to me, the best bet would likely be number 4, Too Sharp in the Chilukki. However, as an alternative, as a single, perhaps the 7, Sea Vista in the maiden race. But I found myself spreading in all of these races just because they just all have a funky feel to them. I can't explain it any other way. It just doesn't look overly defined, and there's a little bit of hair on all of them. Too Sharp probably has the least amount, and I think has the best race shape. So in leg 1, we're going to go with 2, 7, and 10. With, if you want to go any further, that Tomasello number 9 to me is really intriguing. And if you think Yinzer's not going to fire, then I would supplant the 2 with the 9. And for ticket size, I probably would throw the 9 in there. It's just the ticket's, pretty good size for what is. This could conceivably be a chalky pick 5. I just don't think it's going to be. So in the Chilukki, we're going to go with 2, 4, and 5, although I really like Too Sharp in that race. And again, if you want a single somewhere, that's a good alternative, good pick. The allowance race, leg 3, we're going to go with 4, 9, and 11. In the Commonwealth Turf, we're going to go with 3, 8, and 9 with Evade. To me, I like just not enough to single. I just can't quite get there with him. And then the maiden, race 11, anything can happen, but we're going to go with the 3, 5, and 7. So that's 3 times 3 times 3 times 3 times 3. That's $121.50 on a 50-cent base. This could be, this is a weird one because, when I think it's going to be fairly chalky, I don't want to spend a whole lot on the ticket. But there's just enough vulnerability in a few of these, particularly in leg 5 and leg 4, the Commonwealth and the maiden race, that I feel that you almost sort of have to spread in all of these races. So there it is for what you will. If you want to pare down, you've got my individual selections, and hopefully they'll all come in and, and it should pay halfway decent. So I hope this analysis helps you with your own wagering strategy, of course, and I wish you the best of luck as always. And listen, Thanksgiving's next week. I want to wish everybody a safe and happy Thanksgiving weekend. It is my favorite weekend of the year. Ohio State, Michigan, the Churchill Downs, the Clark Handicap. It's always a great day of racing, and we'll certainly have coverage on that. We've got the Kentucky Derby Future Wager, and we're going to start early on with Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks projections, and we're going to do this for the entire Derby season, so be on the lookout for that from us. And of course, if you do like content like this, please like and subscribe, and thanks to all of you who have come on board. That's it from here. I'll talk to you soon, and until then, be well.